basically Georgia, Florida, and Alabama meet. So I was right there on the corner. I can go to, just like here in Mexico, I can go to Florida in a couple minutes and go to the beach. I can go to Georgia and go to Atlanta in a couple hours and hang out in the big city there. But we're right in that area there. It's called the Wiregrass area. Beautiful, green trees everywhere. Those who will be going to summer camp will get a little glimpse of what it's like in Alabama. It's not as beautiful as Alabama, but you'll get a little glimpse of what it's like there, okay, when you go. I grew up by, my mom's mother died when she was 11 years old, so I never met my real grandmother. Didn't know my step-grandmother was my step-grandmother until I was an adult. A lot of things I didn't find out until I was an adult. My family history's been a mystery to me in a lot of ways, and you'll find out why. But I grew up, and when I was about 4 years old, my parents divorced. I had a 1-year-old sister, and it was myself. My parents divorced, and my dad was never around. I probably remember seeing him a couple times. Matter of fact, he got married right away after my mom refused to stay with him because he was very abusive. He even lifted up a hammer towards my mother before, and very abusive. And last night I was talking to my mother, and she said, I remember you grabbing his leg and kind of holding onto his leg and telling you to stop. And that was the last time. My mom said she took my sister and I and left and never returned. She got a little apartment, and she started working, probably $2 an hour, whatever minimum wage was, and she took care of us. And I told my mom, I said, thank you for not abandoning us. You could have abandoned us at any time. You had 2 children. You didn't have, you left home when you were 18. My mom had me when she was 18 years old. 18 years old. So she was really young. And, well, back in those days, the way she explains it, a lot of people were getting married at 14. Females were getting married at 14 because by the time you were 18 or 19, 20, you're already considered old. So it's kind of unique to this culture here, too. So times were different back then. A lot of people married just to get out of the house. And so because my mom had a stepmother, she, wanted to get out of the house. So her mother, she believes, died because when her father, which is my father, and her split up, she was with a very abusive man, my mother's mom, which is my grandmother, and he used to beat her. My mom said there was times when he would drag her down the road in the community, and people would see this kind of behavior. And she had a brain aneurysm, and they believed it happened because of all the beatings that he gave her. So my mom had a pretty sad life growing up. And she admitted to me last night she really didn't know how to be a mother. And my father was never a father to me. I don't know what it's like to have a father. A person want to say they love you. I never heard the words, I love you. And I had to come to grips with this. I kind of ignored this whole thing my whole entire life. It wasn't until I was older that I came to grips with the fact that I didn't grow up in a loving home in that way. I mean, my mom took care of me, but she never said she loved me. I knew she loved me because she took care of me, but I never heard the words. One blessing I did get out of my relationship, well, lack of relationship with my dad, was his family. My grandmother had 9 children. My father was one of them. So I had a big family on that side, and they all could cook. So that was a good thing. So it was a blessing. And so having that big family was special to me. We grew up very poor. When my mom got divorced, she was not working at the time, so my dad wanted her to stay home. So she had to get a job. And when she got a job, she had to work. And even today, she said to herself, she still wished she would have spent a lot more time with us. But on her mind, it was, money, money, money. I got to make money, I got to provide. But she didn't understand the principles of spending time with us. At the same time, she had to earn money. And it's tough for a single mom to do that. So I'd say Mom forgave you a long time ago. But anyway, she was having that discussion with me. Well, make a long story short, she said I refused to get on and stay on government assistance. I wanted to get out there and work. She said I could have easily stayed home with you guys, let the government take care of us. But she said I didn't want that. I didn't want to do that. So I do remember one vague moment where we were on government assistance, where we had these government food coupons, food stamps we call them. We didn't have a Lone Star card. Sorry. And we would go down there, and so because I was the man of the house, I would have to go down there, and I'd be praying I didn't see anybody from school that I knew, Because I had to come home with the groceries. If I didn't, I get beaten. So I would go down there, and there were times I did see people, and, you try to, hide and best you could, and you purchase the food, and you would go home. That's just the way it was. We grew up on bologna. That's why I don't eat bologna now. I don't touch it. We had a lot of Spam. I don't touch that. I don't eat anything I ate as a kid, because we eat the same thing every day. I just don't touch it. My great-grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. So if you see my mom, you'll see she has high cheekbones. She's very red-toned, toned, red-toned, and that's a fascinating story within itself to know that I have a great-grandmother that's full-blooded Cherokee, but that's another story. we had to live in my great-grandmother's home, which was in what we call it's not an alley that you think of like in New York. An alley in New York is like a paved alley, and it's got like tall buildings around it. But alleys in the country are dirt roads in the middle of the city with paved roads. And the houses are kind of on the slant. The road kind of goes like this, and you just got houses everywhere, and little wood frame houses with porches. And we lived in one of those homes. Well, behind our house was a funeral home. And I don't know if there's dead bodies or kind of what, but we had rats that were about this big. They got into our house somehow, huge rats. And I remember finding a fishing pole, and I would chase them around the house with, that was kind of our sport, you know. And I would chase them around the house. I don't know what you called it, but that was our sport. And we'd chase them around the house with those fishing poles. And I would just, you know. And I remember one day we woke up and found that my little sister's bottle had been chewed up by, and that was it. My mom was a hard working woman. She was able to get a little house. A little 2-bedroom house, and that's where we moved to. We stayed there. She paid like $16,000, $17,000 for it, and had a big lot in the corner. And she did this all by herself. And I thank God for my mom. And so we moved into that home. And I remember there was one Christmas I didn't get anything for Christmas. And my mom said, "You're not going to get anything for Christmas this year." And I said, "Oh, you're just playing." Because she always used to hide things for us. She always made everything exciting. And I like that about her. Everything was always fun and exciting. And I remember one time I was in bed and she would pretend she saw Santa Claus on the news. "Oh, he's on the news. You better not get up." Because, you know, he put his, you know, he had a little pipe, right? He put the tobacco in your eye and all the stories that come over. "You see him in the sky. He's on the news. We see him. He's coming." And we get all excited, you know. Pretend we're sleeping and stuff like that. So, tooth fairy thing is the same thing. Pretend we had a tooth in the pillow, you know, wake up in the morning, it was like a, you know, silver dollar or something. So, and she was good, too. Either that or was a hard sleeper, but she pulled it off every time. My mom was good. She's sneaky. So it was great. So she did make things exciting for us. And I never knew I was poor. Last night she was telling me there's times where we were so poor. She goes, "I didn't know what I was going to do." And but I never knew that. I mean, obviously I knew we didn't have the money everybody else had, but I didn't know we were like poor. That poor, like we didn't have anything to eat type poor. So anyway, let me move on. We moved to that house, and then later on my mom met my stepfather. And I was about, I think, 8 or 9 years old when they got married. And he was in the military. He was in the Army. So he was going to get stationed over in Kentucky, Fort Knox, Kentucky. So here we go. We're packing up and we're moving to Kentucky. Now, I had been up to Alabama all this time and up to this point. And so we moved to Kentucky when I was about 9 years old, and I saw snow for the first time. So that was amazing. And we moved on an Army base. On this Army base, it's like a little small community. And you hear the cannons going off every day, and everybody lived in the same type of housing, and you went to the same school, so everybody was military brats, kids. And we went to the school together, and we did it for about a year. My mom was like, "You know what, I don't want anything else to do with the military. It's either me or the military." And he's like, "Well, I choose you." My mom was beautiful, so he chose me. And so we moved back to Alabama, into the same home. So we moved back, and then my little brother was born shortly after that. We're about almost 11 years apart. So I don't know if you got anybody that you're about 11 years apart from, but we were far apart. And so guess who got elected to be the babysitter?
You.
Yeah. Changing diapers and all.
Wow.
And so I look back at that and I think, you know, I didn't like it. Because who's going to let their friends know they're changing diapers? You know, that's embarrassing for a boy to say, "Yeah, I'm changing my little brother's diaper," you know. But I had to do that. And so my wife asked, "How come you don't help change diapers?" I said, "Man, I don't do anything I did as a kid." But anyway, I look back at those things and I thank God for that. And we lived at a time where you can take, you know, we were so poor that we used to make our bicycles. True story. We would walk around and we would look for parts. We'd find a tire here, a wheel here, and we'd find a frame here somebody had in the trash pile. We'd spray paint it and we'd make our own bike. And we would ride around town. And we would go for 5-6 miles. When I was in junior high, we would walk to school. We walked past the highway and, you know, nobody worried about us. We just walked and we were very responsible and most of the time. And we walked to school 5 miles each way. You know, we took our time, we would talk and tell jokes and, you know, just have fun. Everybody had a nickname in the crew, you know. I'm not going to tell you what my nickname is. It's got $100, but you're not going to get it out of me. You can beat me till I'm blue or purple, whichever one, but you're not going to get it out of me. But those are the good old days. Things are not like that anymore. And that's the way we grew up. My grandfather was kind of like a father figure in my life. He was a lot older because he'd been married like 3 or 4 times because, you know, his wife would die or something would happen. But he was an entrepreneur. He was a painter by trade. My step grandmother would actually go and clean houses. That's what she would do when she had time. And so he made pretty good money. He actually had one of the best cars in the area for the black folks there. And he had built his own house. So he was seen as very successful. But he was a very good man. He had got saved later in life and used to take us to church. And I remember going to church and hearing the Bible stories and even getting baptized. But I don't think that church was a good, solid, as I look back at it, it was a good, solid Bible-believing church at the time. But anyway, I remember getting baptized in the church, not even understanding what any of that meant. But my grandfather would come over and he would give us, my sister and I, a quarter every Saturday. And I know what y'all thinking. Quarter? Well, back in those days, in the early 80s, that was a lot of money. I mean, you can go to the store and video games had just come out. You know how you play video games? You put like 4 quarters in there, and it lets you play like 5 minutes, and then they ask you for more money. And that's if you're winning. You know, if you're losing, they ask for it too. But if you're winning and you want to keep going to the next stage, they ask you for 4 more quarters or 2 more quarters, whatever it is. Well, when I play, you put a quarter in. If you're winning, you just keep playing. And people are getting mad at you and they're yelling at you because you're so good and you're still in the game. So with a quarter, it can last a long time. Or I had a choice between playing a video game or buying 25 cookies. Or 25 pieces of candy. So I had a lot of choices with a quarter. So I had an option. I was a young boy with options with a quarter. So that's the way it worked. So you could get a whole, those little Debbie snack cakes, not the little ones that come in the box, but the big ones, the big size. Those were a quarter.
Wow.
Now those things cost like $3 or something like that. So those were a quarter. A McDonald's hamburger was 29 cents. And they really made you, a Happy Meal was $1.49. They actually made you happy back then. The toys were bigger. Food tastes better. So anyway, not as many hormones. I could have been 7 feet tall back then. So it was good. My mother, and she admitted this to me last night, that as a single mom, she didn't really know how to handle it. And she never had a lot of freedom because her stepmom was so tough on her. And that's why she left home. And so when she was single, oftentimes on weekends when she had the opportunity to spend time with us, she would go out with her friends. And so we talked about that a little bit. And I'll explain to you why I mentioned that a little bit later. But as time went on, and I got into junior high, in the schools that we went to, it was segregated by choice. I had a few white friends and things of that nature, but most of us sat in groups. If you were walking to the cafeteria, you see like each race sitting together in groups, like a clump of groups. And then you see the whites over here and the blacks over here and so forth. There wasn't a lot of Hispanic people, but if you go to my hometown now, there's tons of Hispanic people there. But when I was growing up, it was just black and white. That was it. I don't know if you knew this, but back when the civil rights was going on, a lot of Hispanic people actually came over and tried to classify themselves as white because they were not considered a race. It was only black and white in the United States considered a race. So did y'all know that?
Nope.
Yeah, that's a bit of history that you know now. Okay. So a lot of them, if they were light-skinned, they would do that. And even some blacks, if they were very light-skinned, they would try to pass for white. They would process their hair and do stuff like that. So just so you know that, interesting. And so anyway, where was I at? Yeah. So in junior high, in first grade,